All right, good morning, good afternoon out there, wherever you are, guys. Welcome back, and thank you for being a part of the Merchant Services Slayers. Guys, today we're going to be discussing a very important topic, especially along the lines in selling cash discount. This is kind of one of the best ways to bring about the idea of what a merchant pays. Also, it's kind of remnants of the old steps of the sale that most people would be using when you're selling traditional processing. So we're going to kind of equate that to how do you use this potential step as a major sales tool in selling cash discount? Okay, so today we're going to discuss discussing the effective rate. So if you're new to merchant processing or credit card processing sales and you haven't had that experience yet, the effective rate is the easiest way for a merchant to kind of calculate what they pay. And it's actually its most simplistic form. It's pretty much your bill divided by your gross sales in credit card processing. Okay, so it could be 2.2, 2.3. Whenever you're in the field and you hear a merchant say, well, I only pay 2.3%, right? Okay, then you kind of know exactly what they're doing. They're taking the lease, the fees, all the rates, their bill on their statement, whether it's discounts due or daily discounts or whatever they pay divided by whatever they do in sales. Okay, so generally, nationwide, that's 2 to 3%. And that's actually to be our first kind of point or topic. Okay, so it's important to understand this because that way you can also find out flaws within pricing, within what merchants' understanding of credit card processing is. So if it's a newer merchant or they take their agent's word of advice, let's say, and they say that they're anything below 2%, generally that says that they don't know how to read their bill, okay, and they don't really care, right? So it's super important to understand that. Say, well, I only pay 0.5%. Well, they could pay 0.5% above interchange, or they could pay whatever I pay 4 cents. Well, it's 4 cents above interchange because cards cost a lot more than that, okay? So it's super important to understand that. But how do we use the effective rate as part of the sales process and a sales tool? So this is the sales engineering steps of the sale. And the idea with this series too, guys, is kind of how to put it through on the steps of the sale, what to do, how to construct your steps of the sale. And believe it or not, discussing the effective rate is the easiest way to discuss what a merchant pays. So we're going to talk about 3 things today that are going to really help you understand effective rate and how to actually use this as a sales tool when you're selling merchant services or in general cash discounts. Okay, so it's super important. Number 1 is that there's no more better deal. Okay, and that's the first concept that you need to understand when you're discussing effective rate. If there's no more better deal, then you now have an opportunity to tell the merchant what they pay. You don't need a statement anymore. You don't really need to understand how much they pay, because if you're selling cash discount, it's only either the lease amount or the service fee or whatever it happens to be, and it's whatever they pay minus that is what they'll save. Times 12 is what they'll save in a year. So it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. But to understand that there's no more better deal means that you can now separate yourself from 85 to 90% of the agents pitching price and not value, but pitching price and saying the same thing over and over, the same song and dance merchants have heard from years. And you can move yourself over here and basically tell them, hey, there's no more better deal out there. I mean, even if there was a better deal than what you have, it's probably not going to be the best deal. If you have Square, it's expensive. Heartland's expensive. But at the end of the day, there's really no more better deal. And if there is a better deal, it's not worth it for you to switch as far as for savings. There is for value and POS stations and stuff like that, but there's really no more better deal. Okay, it's the fastest race to zero. I mean, there's been so many merchant processing out there that I'm going to tell you, Mr. Merchant, this is a very competitive space. If not, you'd be happy to see me. You'd probably buy me tea and love the savings that I'm going to give you, but now you want to kick me out. Okay, so it's important to understand that there's no more better deal. Number 2 is that the national average is like 2 to 3%. So simple math, effective rate. 2 to 3%, that's $200 to $300 for every 10,000. So 100,000 is 2 to 3 grand, right? So this way based off of what the merchant does in sales, how much they're roughly going to pay. And that's all you need to know when you're selling cash discounting, when you're selling on the actual price, so the discussion of price, or to justify a lease amount for equipment, or either free equipment, or a service fee. Whatever it happens to be that you're going to be charging them monthly is going to be drastically different than what they would pay in processing fees. Okay, so you now are in a position where you don't ask for a statement, you don't request the numbers from a merchant, and you're now going to tell the merchant what they pay. Okay, from a form of confidence, saying, Mr. Merchant, it's 2 to 3%. There's no more better deal. I mean, your grandmother could come in here and own a processing company and then give you a great deal, but it's still not going to be worth it for you to switch. And you're probably switched 3 or 4 times, right? Yeah, we have, because of price, right? Yeah, mainly because of price, and we like the agent. Okay, great. Well, at the end of the day, there's 2 to 3%. So it's $200 to $300 for every 10,000. So what are you doing? You're doing what, 50,000? Okay, if you're doing 50,000 and you got a great deal at 2%, I mean, your bill is going to be about $1,000 a month, right? And probably you don't have a good deal at 2%. You might have 2.2, 2.3, whatever it happens to be. You're between, $1,100 to $1,500 a month, right? Great. Well, our program is $100 a month. It's $99 a month for this piece of equipment, or it's $99 a month with free equipment. And then we have a service fee with that and hosting. So it's going to be right around $125 a month. So if it's $1,000 minus 125, you're like $925 in savings every month. I mean, that's damn near $12,000 a year that I can save you. So it's super important to understand that. And then the third tip, when you're discussing the effective rate with your merchant, now that you're like, oh, Carson, I don't need a statement anymore. Yeah, now part of your sales engineering is you're going to tell the merchant what they pay. Most merchants will just tell you right off the bat, yeah, I pay between $1,000 a month. Okay, or I pay, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. That's what I pay. But if they don't tell you, you can just figure it out. It's 2 to 3%, roughly right there, 2 to 3%. Okay, good deal, bad deal, 2 to 3%. Now that you know that you're confident in that, you can tell the merchant, listen, you're paying $2,000 a month, right? Okay, well, okay, great. Well, you're 50, 150,000 in sales then, right? Roughly $2,500 in fees, $2,700 in fees, 25, right? Yeah, great. Okay, great. Well, our program with these 4 POS stations is going to be $399 a month. Okay, limited volume, limited swipes. I'll take the $2,500, subtract it from that on a simple piece of paper, do a cost graph right then and there. This is exactly what we can save you. Now, if this is something that we can do for you and we can move forward with it, then I will put it in writing. We'll make sure that we cover all the other value-added propositions. Now, remember, guys, when we're discussing effective rate too, there is a huge amount of rapport that's built up. The value has been built up. They know Carson Cook. They know who I am. They know who you are. We discussed family stuff. We discussed this. We have rapport already, so now it's time to get down to business and discuss the price. Okay, so do not, and then that brings us to point number 3, guys, is do not sound like the other guy or gal. Okay, and that's a huge point, is that you have to realize that selling in a competitive industry is actually very easy if you don't sound like the competition, right? So if you're conducting yourself correctly, if you're handling your steps of the sale with a lot of rapport, if you're actually being yourself and treating your customer with respect and going through a process where you get to know them, they get to know you, and most of your conversation is discussing personal stuff, not anything to do with business, and also getting your merchant to speak, having them speak 85% of the time and you 20, 15% of the time is important, right? So that's the value-added proposition of understanding that you do not sound like the other guy, okay? So being this process is that you can discuss effective rate. That's the cool part. Just do not sound like the other person. Do not sound like the other individual. There's not a lot of ISOs, okay, and this is a huge tip, where their agents will go in there and telling the merchant what they pay because they already know. So, they've never heard that sales pitch before. It's going to be something that'll set you aside from all of the other agents that are out there in the field pitching price. They're pitching POS stations. They're pitching the cost, okay, and they've never had a situation where, hey, why don't you give me a bill because I'll do a cost graph and I'll give it back. We don't need that anymore, especially when you're only selling cash discount. It's, look, I completely understand what you pay. There's no more better deal. It's not a secret. Okay, it's 2 to 3%. If you're online, it'll be a little bit higher. It could be 2.5 to 3.9%, right? I mean, who knows? It could be very, very high, but those are your ranges. When you know your ranges, now I can tell the merchant what they pay. Now I have that idea of what they pay. I know what I offer, so I can find out what I can save them, right? But I don't need a statement to do all that. And discussion around the effective rate is key. Discussion around the effective rate is understanding that you will tell them what they pay. 2 to 3%, $200 to $300 for every $10,000 in sales. That includes the lease that they might have, or the equipment they're paying for, the hosting, or whatever it is, packaged up, divided by their sales. The nation average is 2 to 3%. 2% great deal, 3% bad deal. They could go a little bit low, could go a little bit high, but at the end of the day, Mr. Merchant is 2 to 3%, $200 to $300 for every 100,000. So you do 100,000 in sales, you're paying between 2 to 3 grand, right? Right, okay, great. Well, let me show you what I can do. So now you understand discussion rate around effective rate is super important. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the Slayers, guys. Rock and roll. Have a successful week.